I got you. If you do not want this movie spoiled, keep scrolling. Smile is about a psychiatrist named Dr. Rose Cutter, and she gets this patient one day named Laura. Now, Laura tries to assure her, I'm not crazy, I'm a PhD student, and she tells Rose that she watched her professor commit suicide a few days before. And ever since then, she's been seeing these people. Sometimes it's people she knows, sometimes it's people she doesn't know, and she says whatever it is, it's like it wears people's faces. But what it has in common is that it's always smiling. So she starts having a panic attack and Rose calls for help. But before they get there, Rose turns around and she looks like this with this smile on her face. And she does this with a piece of broken glass. After this, Rose starts seeing the same thing that her patient described. And she sees another one of her patients like this and he attacks her. But turns out it wasn't real and he was just laying in his bed. So now she's seeing things as well. She tells her fiance about this and he basically tells her that she's crazy. And she sees her psychiatrist who doesn't really help a whole lot either. So she continues to unravel and her supervisor tells her to take a week off. During this week, she decides to go to her nephew's birthday party. But while at her sister's house for the party, her nephew opens the gift that she got and it's her dead cat inside, which she doesn't remember killing the cat or putting it in this present. Then she sees this entity at the party. So at this point, she knows that something is following her. We also find out that Rose and her sister have a strained relationship following the suicide of their mother. And Rose is the one that found her. One of the cops who was investigating the death of Rose's client, played by our love Kyle Gallner, is this cop Joel, who also happens to be Rose's ex. So Rose finds out that Laura watched her professor kill himself before she killed herself. So she goes to the professor's widow and finds that the professor also watched somebody kill themselves before he killed himself. So Rose goes to Joel and he finds out that this is basically a continuous cycle, and he traces it back 20 cases, 19 of which have killed themselves, and one of which is in prison for killing somebody else. So they go to visit this guy in prison and basically he tells her that she's cursed and the entity that is cursing her feeds off trauma. And the only way to break the chain is either by killing yourself or killing somebody else with a witness. Rose's psychiatrist comes to see her, and it turns out it's not her psychiatrist, it's one of the demons, and this was honestly the scariest part of the movie for me. And she tells her that it's almost time. At this point, Rose has this hallucination that she goes to the hospital and murders Carl, one of her patients. And when she comes to, her supervisor is there and sees her with a knife, and obviously calls the cops. So Rose runs away to her abandoned childhood home where her mother killed herself, with the intention that she has to, with no witnesses around, to end the cycle. At this point, it's revealed that Rose actually found her mother before she died, but didn't call for help because she was scared of her. So Rose has carried that guilt and that trauma with her whole life. So we find this out as Rose is confronted by this like 7-foot demon. And Rose lights it on fire and lights the whole house on fire. And then she goes to Joel to tell him that she won. But as she's telling him this, he turns into a smile demon and basically says, I'll always be with you, meaning her trauma is always going to be with her. And she wakes up and she's still in the house. She never burned it down. It was a hallucination. We watch the demon literally crawl inside her mouth. Joel arrives at the house, and as he enters, he watches Rose light herself on fire and kill herself, meaning he obviously is next in the cycle. So this is why I said to watch this movie only if you're in a good headspace, because the message it leaves you with is kind of hopeless, in that you can never escape or grow from your trauma, which is not true.